on the
Wait,
soccer
wait, wait.
team
I
for
have to
4 years.
drill
Oh,
down on that.
okay.
You said full-time student, and anytime I hear that, that either means 12 hours, which was like my kind of full-time, or there's the people out there who are like, yeah, I take 22 hours per semester. And I was like, that's not full-time, bro. That's like
Yeah.
beast mode. That's like nuts, out of control. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Enjoy College on Purpose. This is a podcast that's all about helping people make the most of college. My name is Ish, and I get to be your host today. I am actually a traveling speaker that spends a lot of time on college campuses. And the one thing I know about college students is you are super busy. And so, what I want to do with this podcast is I want to make the most of your time. I want to keep this episode to about 20 or 25 minutes or so. And in that time, I want to interview a professional, someone that I've come to know throughout my journeys and travels that I have mad respect for. And we're going to dig through a little bit of their life to hear a little bit about their college days, as well as what they do professionally, to dig some insight to help you make the most out of college today. And so I'm really, really excited about today's guest. We are bringing in Jonny Harvell. And we'll get to talk about Jonny's professional circumstances here in just a second. But what I can personally tell you about Jonny is I've known Jonny for a really long time. I think fourth grade is the very first time I remember meeting Jonny. And as life has progressed, we've just found ourselves sharing a lot of common spaces. Growing up together, going to college together, even some professional ventures together, waiting tables, and now in the tech sector. We volunteered for like a middle school program at some point. So we've shared a lot of life. And the one thing that really stands out to me about Jonny from all of those years is Jonny was one of the first people in my life that really taught me the value of enjoying the present moment. Personally, for me, I was all about being productive and being efficient and making the most out of every one of the opportunities in life. And while hanging out with Jonny, there would just be moments where it's like, hey, man, we're here at Sonic. Let's just capitalize on this moment and overtip this waitress with your money. That's my money, Jonny. I don't know if you remember that story, but
I
that
do.
that still just kind of stands out. It both made me furious, and I was like, "You're right. We just made that lady's day, and it's cool." And so, anyways,
Yeah.
all that said, Jonny Harvell, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Oh man, Ish, that's so awesome. Great introduction. Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm so glad to be here and talk with you.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. You know, Jonny, one of the first questions we always ask our guests is I want to give you about 90 seconds or so to just brag about yourself. Help us get to know you a little bit in about 90 seconds or so and brag about yourself, man.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So yeah, I'm Johnny. I'm from Texas. I grew up in the Houston area. Like you said, we knew each other for a long time. We went to college together. I guess one of the things I would brag about would be kind of this, family life. I want to make sure that family's my top priority. And being there for my family, that kind of helped shape a lot of my career decisions from college into my professional life. Was making sure that I had a space or I had the ability to put family first. And so that being there for my family, there's a lot of jobs where you have to travel or you have to be gone, you have to be away. I didn't want those. I didn't want that for my family. And so from an early professional mindset, I really wanted to set myself up for the type of role that would be one, to be supporting my family, and then to be there for my family. And kind of growing up the way I did, my dad was always made that a priority. He wanted to be there for my basketball games, my soccer games growing up. He wanted to be there for my birthdays and holidays, those types of things. He did a little bit of traveling there for a while, and when he was away, it wasn't like, super long time, but it was enough to say, like, I knew when I became, in that role, I wanted to be there for my family. I'm married for what, 12 years now. We got three kiddos and loving every minute of it. So
No, and certainly, I mean that is what stands out about you. I mean, I remember growing up having similar experiences with your dad, and to me, they registered as kind of these big values on like family comes first, definitely be present. You know, tomorrow's not always promised, and certainly that was passed down to you, and even to the point where now professionally, we're both kind of in the Salesforce ecosystem, remote employment, which just kind of creates all kinds of amazing opportunity. You know, there was a point where Jonny Harvell was just a bright-eyed 18-year-old college student, man. And so I'd love it if you
Yeah.
could take a minute and just tell us a little bit about what college life looked like for you. Were you an on-campus student, off-campus? How many hours per semester were you taking? Did you have an off-site job or extracurricular activities? Just kind of paint a picture of what the college experience looked like for Jonny Harvell.
Yeah, great question. College was awesome for me. I had a really, really good college experience. For me, I was a full-time student. I played soccer on the
Wait, wait,
soccer
wait, wait.
team
I
for
have to
4 years.
drill
Oh,
down on that.
okay.
You said full-time student, and anytime I hear that, that either means 12 hours, which was like my kind of full-time, or there's the people out there who are like, yeah, I take 22 hours per semester. And I was like, that's not full-time, bro. That's like
Yeah.
beast mode. That's like nuts, out of control. So what kind of full-time
Yeah.
student were you?
I think I ranged never below 12, which was like the lowest that you could be and still be full time. But I think I did go up a little bit higher, maybe 15 or 18. I don't remember. I was never like 22 hours full time the whole time, graduating 3 years type of a person. And I wanted to kind of balance that with playing soccer. I would have practice and I would have games and, I would physically need time to, sleep and repair my body and like all that kind of stuff. So full time for me meant like 12 to 15 hours. So like on the shallow end of full time.
Mhm.
But yeah, so full time soccer player. I definitely I lived in the dorm for 3 years. On my fourth year as a senior, I lived in an apartment with a roommate, which was awesome to have kind of both experiences. So I love that. But I think the highlight for my college career was like it was the people. It was the culture of the campus. It wasn't necessarily, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but like if I were to go to a different school for a different degree, I did a degree that was large, theological. So it was like biblical studies type of a thing. But if I were in a different campus studying like engineering or, something along those lines, I don't think that I would have found the same, desire to dive into the people as much. I think the biblical stuff and the people, kind of went hand in hand. So not only was I building my foundation on, biblical principles, I was building it around the culture of like-minded people, and I think that's what kind of give the longevity of some of our relationships that we've had in college. So yes, my college experience was awesome. I enjoyed the culture and the people, and it wasn't all like perfect. Nothing ever is, but it was definitely a great season to learn about myself, learn about others, how we interact, how to get along, how to overcome tough, obstacles and different, setbacks. And, I think in college I also learned how to lose. As bad as that sounds, I learned what it's like to lose and to be okay with that and know that nothing's going to go the way you hoped it to go 100% of the time. Um,
I really appreciate that you mentioned that last piece. I mean, I appreciate everything you're sharing, but even that last piece too, because in my head, as you're describing, this whole upbringing of like, man, I'm a family guy, and holistic health and full time, but not enough because I still needed to take care of my body and think like you've certainly always been a one of the more holistically healthy people I've ever met in my life. And yet at the same time, like this holistic health that you pursue, where you're kind of very intentional about all the values and things that you pursue throughout your life, like that's not just a given either. There was certainly a lot of effort and work and intentionality that went into you building that out, including enduring hardships and losses and figuring out like, man, this doesn't feel great. And at the same time, there's a way to move forward from here. And so I guess immediately one of the first thoughts that goes in my head is, for college students listening today, obviously they're in a little bit of a similar place to you where holistic health matters, right? Their life is more than just their academics. And yet at the same time, gosh, with everything that's in front of them, academic responsibilities, roommates, for some of these people in athletics, extracurriculars, they've got a job on the side. Like immediately, where does your head go when a college student today asks you, hey Jonny, what does it look like for me to chase down, holistic health so that I don't
Yeah.
burn myself out throughout these 4 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to tell a story that I think I told my kids not but a couple days ago. Um, Dad, why do we have to go to bed right now? Like I'm not tired. It's my bedtime. And I told him a story of college. Like, hey, it was my first year of college, and a group of people wanted to go to a movie that started at like 10:30, and it wouldn't be over until midnight or one or whatever. And I was like, I could go to this movie. So I went to this movie late at night. I had freedom. I had the ability to make my own choices. I could set my own bedtime. I don't. I wanted to go and do this thing, and so I went to this movie, and it ended late. I got back late. And I had to get up the next morning to go to class, and I was tired all the next day, and I felt terrible. And I was like, oh man, like there's a reason why my parents tried to set a bedtime for me or tried to tell me, hey, you need X amount of sleep because the next day you're not going to function well. You're not going to think straight. You're going to be groggy and tired, and you're not going to be able to perform and do the things that you need to do during the day if you stay up and do, too late at night. And so this idea of holistic health and taking care of your body is always kind of, it's like it didn't take me too many repetitions of staying up too late to realize like, oh, hey, go to bed. That's why your parents told you to go to bed because you need to go to bed earlier. At a reasonable time, you need a certain amount of sleep. And so yeah, this holistic health, this balance, this responsibility, like for college, a lot of people, this is the first time in your life that you're going to be out on your own, making your own decisions and kind of forging your own way. And you can choose to listen to the wisdom that's come before you, or you can choose to ignore it and kind of go your own way and do your own thing. And some people are like this. Some people are like, hey, I never want to sign up for an 8 a.m. class and 9:30, 10 class. Like that's not my, I don't I won't perform well during those hours. Like my body doesn't sleep well at night until midnight or one, and I don't wake up until 10 or sometimes 10:30, whatever. Like now, college I think is to the place where you have a more flexibility on your schedule. It's not just like, hey, everyone has to take that 8 a.m. class. The flexibility range is so much greater now than when it was. And actually going through my master's, I did my master's program from like 2016 to 2017 or 18, and that was 100% online. So I could go at my own pace. It wasn't like I had to be present at a certain time. I did it all at night. I did it like kind of early morning, late night on my own time, sometimes in the weekends. And so the flexibility is there to give you your own level of responsibility. And that was kind of another thing. Like if you have classes that you don't have to be present for at a certain time, you still have to have the responsibility to get the work done within the week to, check those boxes to do those things. So definitely college gives you the, that foundational skill of how do you orchestrate your life in a responsible way to, get the things that you want to achieve done in a reasonable time, with, the resources that you have.
Yeah, and this is so timely because we're at the point of the year where finals are coming up. Finals, term papers, just kind of that big push to the end of the semester and get everything turned in. I always like to quote Dwayne The Rock Johnson, who will tell people that you have to protect the thing you do that allows you to do what you do. And essentially, that's his like long-winded way of saying, "Hey, there's a handful of things that I have to do on a regular basis to take care of myself, so that I can continue to meet my responsibilities and do everything else that's expected of me." And when I fall back on those things, gosh, everything starts to stack up, and then suddenly I'm disappointing people. I'm missing out on responsibilities and hurting my own outcomes in all of this. And so it's so timely, to be promoting this concept of priorities and intentionality, and protecting the thing that allows you to do what you do. And a lot of people will experience this as the big push to the end of the semester happens, with finals and all the term papers and everything kind of showing up. For me, I always found that that was a great time to reflect on how that semester went for me. When finals week was bad, a lot of times it was because that entire semester I just didn't handle everything well. Everything stacked up, didn't keep up
Yeah.
with the homework, all the different assignments. And so then, of course, I was cramming. Versus other
Yeah.
semesters, I was like, it's finals week, man, but like I'm going to crush every one of these exams.
Yeah.
term papers are done, and
Yeah.
that was a reflection of, gosh, this semester I did amazing. And so maybe another question that pops up in my head is, as this big push to the end of the semester comes, you've got these students who are like, okay, it's too late. I've made my bed. I am where I'm at. What do I do now? Like, is there anything that floats to the top of your mind as some insight or guidance to, like, hey, it's not too late. You still got some time left before the end of the semester. Here's how you make the most out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. And I think, oh, all right. So what floats to the top immediately is this term called the OODA loop. And OODA is a observe, orient, decide, and act. So it's basically, it was an Air Force veteran, Air Force general that came up with it. He's basically like, when you're confronted with a situation that requires action, first you have to observe what's going on around you. You have to orient yourself to, what are the things that you need to be focused on that you're trying to get away from or going towards. Then you have to decide, this is the way I'm going to go. This is what I'm going to do next. And then you have to act, and that decide and act is kind of hand in hand. So if you are coming through this finals, season and you're like, man, what am I going to do now? First, you have to take a stock of where am I at? What am I up against? What do I have left on the table to do? And you have to decide maybe there's no salvaging that one class. I'm just going to fail it. I've already too far gone. But those three other classes, focus your energy on those and get a really good grade on those because you're going to have to take that other one over again. So you might need to reprioritize your time, your efforts, your energies away from certain things and more into this season of finals that you need to recoup some of the ground that you've lost. And so you can do that like every day, moment to moment. You need to observe, orient yourself, decide and act what you're going to do. And it's good to do that on a localized micro scale, but it's also good to do that kind of on a weekly, monthly, or semester basis where, hey, I need to be constantly observing where I'm at, where I'm going, and what's happening and how I'm reacting to certain elements that are influencing you in your life and your decisions you're making. And so um, definitely don't just say like throwing in the towel, everything's a wash, I'm giving up on everything. Like you definitely want to try to structure your priorities, your efforts, your energies to make the most out of the time that you have and, put it into the space that's going to make the most impact
Yeah.
for what you can going forward.
Dude, that is gold. That is gold. Because on the one hand, I don't think anybody ever wants to hear, man, let's just call it good with that one class and focus on the other three. And yet at the same time, there's something so very real and I would argue like very practically formative for people to navigate through that process of assessing a hard situation, making the hard choices while still preserving, hey, here's what we are going to chase after. Here's the direction we are going to go after. I mean, I don't know about you. For me professionally, certainly there's been times where I've been in a crunch, and it doesn't even have anything to do with how I handled my end of things. Sometimes I end up in a tight spot because of someone else or something else, and I
Yeah.
still have to observe, orient myself, make a decision, move forward from there. So that's super super insightful, Johnny. One other question we like to ask the guests on this show is obviously where you're at in life now. You've learned a lot. You've accomplished a lot. Is there something that stands out to you that you know now that you wish you knew at 18 that might have made a difference, or it just would have been it would have made things better for you going into college? What's something you know today that you wish you knew at 18?
Yeah, I think something that I knew then, but I also kind of know now, and it's more important now, is this idea of the financial responsibility that college is. And there's a really large amount of money that it takes to go to college, whether that be student loans or grants or scholarships. And if you're going to college for somebody else, like, hey, my parents always went and wanted me to go, and they were alumni, and I'm going to go to their campus, and I'm going to, kind of follow in their footsteps because they said you need to do these things in your life. Go to college, then you get married, you get a job, and kind of build your American dream. Well, like that's their view or their plan for your life. But at some point, when you are in that 18 to 20 range, you need to ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want to do? What's going to make me happy? Or, what do I want to pursue? How do I want to design my life? And so going to college is a really big financial investment. And not always do you need to have a college degree to achieve what you want to do in success. And so if you're going to college to check a box off of someone else's design for your life, I want you to also kind of reflect and see, is this what I want to do for what my goals are? And you might be aligned with, hey, my parents said this and I agree with that, and that's kind of what I want to do because they've set you on that path and they've coached you to do it this way. And that's fine if that's the case, but don't go to college if it's not what you want to do or if you're not certain that this is the road that you want to travel. Because it, 4 years down the line, 10 years down the line, if you have, this really big financial burden of student loan debt and you're in a spot where, hey, I really, I really don't like, I really wouldn't want to work in the degree field that I got certified in through the college program. That's even a worse spot to be in than if you were to just say, "Hey, I'm 1 year in now. I think I want to do something else," and it's okay to change your mind. I think there's a lot of pressure on finish what you start and do what you need, but there's also this like, "Hey, I'm not quitting because I'm defeated. I'm quitting because my goals and my life objectives are changing, and so I'm kind of re-strategizing, and I need to go a different direction, and that's okay." But I would say make sure you count the cost before you go in, and then continue to reevaluate that as you go. Because if there's a way that you can go through college without having to land the big, six-figure debt at the end of it, try to do it that way. Money is finite. Your time is finite, but you can make more money later. But I want to say like if you can work or take less than full time and still go to college but not accrue a certain amount of debt along the way, I would say that would probably be, if I could go back and do it differently, that might be an angle that I would want to try to explore, would be, could I go part time? It would take me 6 or 7 years, but I wouldn't have $100,000 debt at the end of it, where I could pay as I go or get scholarships along the way, or try to find a way to make my college journey more financially responsible.
Yeah, I'm so glad you spoke into that. One of the things that I hear a lot about these days is unused financial resources that are literally set aside for college students, and then they're not used, either because there's not enough college students taking advantage of them, or they just don't know about these opportunities that are available. And so one thing I always like to put in front of college students is make sure you're having conversations with just the different services and departments there at the school that you're at, to really at least increase your awareness of all of the resources available to you, all of the opportunities, to make the most of your college experience, even from a financial perspective. Because you're totally right. I mean, it's one thing to graduate with this like super hefty bill, but then to graduate with a hefty bill in a degree or career path that then suddenly you're like, I don't know that I want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
That's a whole other ball game that you're still gonna have to course correct, when you could have just taken some time as a college student now to make sure you're headed down the path that you want. So I appreciate you mentioning that. Jonny, we're getting to the end of our time together, but the last question we always like to put out there is, if there's a way for anyone in our audience who wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way for someone to connect with you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm most active on LinkedIn. And so you can find me on LinkedIn, Jonathan Harvell. And then I have a weird ending. I have a comma and then an M.Ed in my name. So Jonathan Harvell, M.Ed. You can find me on LinkedIn. And that's pretty much the only social media that I'm active on. So
Yeah, Jonny, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, and thanks for sharing your insight, man. We really appreciate you coming on board today.
thank you so much, Ish. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
And to everybody else that's been listening to this episode, thanks for tagging along with us on this episode of Enjoy College on Purpose. I do have one big request for you. Would you please leave a rating and a comment here on the platform that you're listening to this episode on? This is actually very, very helpful for us as we spread the word about Enjoy College on Purpose, and we overcome all the algorithms and start to get them to work on our favor to help as many people as possible. So thanks again for listening, and we will see you next time.